somebody on this planet right now, in fact, a lot of somebody's, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of billions of people, your worst day would be their best. They're literally praying for your worst day right now. They're praying for that opportunity that you have right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. My guest on this episode is Kent Clothier, a real estate investor, super smart business person, super successful business person, has seen the ups and went back down and then went back up again. But most importantly, what he brings, aside from just real good advice on real estate and investing and business, is perspective. Something that I think isn't talked enough about in business and in life. And Kent really nailed it on this episode. You're not going to want to miss this one. Check it out. Kent, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me, brother.
Look, for the listeners who haven't heard of you, I've been following you for quite some time. Like I just told you offline, you were on that list of people I wanted to come on this podcast. So I'm so happy with that, to be doing this right now. But for the people who haven't heard of you, why don't you give them a little bit of a background on your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a little different than most, but I was born and raised by an entrepreneur. So I've been an entrepreneur from the very, very beginning. I started a business with my father when I was 17 years old. I just turned 51. So for 34 years, I've been at this. But when I started a business when I was 17, it was in the grocery industry. It was a grocery arbitrage business where we were kind of flipping truckloads of groceries on the gray market. And wouldn't you know it, it just happened to be wildly successful. And so looked up, and from the time I was 17 till the time I was 30, built a business that ultimately was doing about $1.8 billion a year in sales, had become the 7th largest privately held company in the state of Florida, which made my 20s a little different than most. Had all the trappings of success and all that kind of good stuff, learned some amazing lessons. I would argue probably got my PhD in entrepreneurship at a very, very young age. And as fate would have it, ended up getting into a run-in with my partners, walking away from that business back in March 14th of 2000, and couldn't walk away elegantly, couldn't walk away, in any kind of professional way, because I was a young kid, had to walk away and basically burn every bridge to the ground as I was doing it, which left me in a place where ultimately I had nowhere to turn. And so I turned to real estate investing, which, I'm a product of one of those late night infomercials we've all seen, right? I came right out of that, saw some guys talking about flipping houses on TV, 2:00 in the morning, went down, checked it out, got involved, and then quickly realized that I was good at it and started applying a lot of the things I'd learned in my, previous life, business life, to the real estate investing space, and things started to accelerate very, very quickly. Started flipping a lot of houses down in South Florida at this time. And one thing led to another. You fast forward, I guess, better part of 18, 19 years here. And so now my family runs one of the, most successful real estate investment companies sitting out there today. We buy and sell, a little over 1,500 houses a year, right at about 1,500 houses a year. Operate in 11 different markets, manage, a little over 7,000 houses. In addition to, I run a real estate investment education company that has a little over 60,000 clients around the world, and software company that has, tens of thousands of people use our software and our coaching and our training. And, when it comes to real estate investing at this point, we've probably got our hands in just about every area of it.
I think that's a perfect place to start, because the people who know you know real estate. And I think everyone wants to get involved in real estate, but it's one of the hardest things to kind of get started if you don't know where to go. And they always say, oh, I can't get invested in real estate because I don't have any money. So let's say I don't want to start from the broke people who, let's say, don't have $1 to invest in real estate, because if you don't have $1 to invest in real estate, you don't have $1 to invest in anything. So let's take them out. But where would you start if, let's say, you had $50,000 to $100,000 saved up, ready to go? What would be the play in order to get started in real estate?
It's literally one of two areas. I think the big mistake that people make, and it's either a blessing or a curse, depending on how it goes down. But I see a lot of people that they take that $50,000 to $100,000, they get a little bit of education. They watched, a YouTube video, they read a book, they listened to a podcast, whatever the case may be, and they'll go out and buy a rental property. And in a lot of cases, they'll buy a rental property right in their own backyard without any understanding of just how noisy that really is, right? And it gives a lot of people a really bad taste in their mouth, and because it's cool to say I own a rental property, but it is something quite different to operate a rental property, right? I mean, when you have tenants and toilets and all the things, all the nightmare scenarios that inevitably will come up inside of that. So I think you have to make a decision pretty much right out of the gate that just says, am I going to be active? Meaning, like, I really want to get down in the weeds and I want to experience the bumps and the bruises and all the brain damage of investing in real estate because I want to know the business. I want to know it from the inside out. Or am I truly looking at it as an investment, as an investor, right? And understand that we live in an environment today where it has never been easier to be a passive investor in real estate, and getting easier by the day, quite frankly. I mean, you have companies like ours. REI Nation is the name of our family-owned company that's literally, this business model didn't even exist 10 years ago, where people come in every day and we go off and buy single-family homes in 11 different markets. We pay for it with our own money. Then we turn around and completely rehabilitate the property, remodel the property, make it beautiful. Then we turn around and put a tenant in there on a minimum of a 2-year lease. And, again, going back to the example I gave earlier, most people have no idea, what is the right term of a lease? Am I just leasing somebody year to year? We've learned over the years that we want to put somebody in there for 2 years, and our average tenant stays in there for longer than 4 years, which is a huge thing when it comes to actually making money in real estate. And so we put that tenant in there, and then we turn around and sell that to investors, entrepreneurs that will be listening to, your audience. We sell that to them as a performing asset. It's sitting there. It's in Dallas, Texas. It's you paid $200,000 for this property. You put $40,000 down. The bank gave you the other 160. We're managing. We stay in place and we manage the entire process. Not only did we do all the work to get it to that point, but then once I sell it to you, now I stay in place and I actually manage the property for you. So you get the opportunity to own rental properties, single family houses, and have none of the pain, none of the headache, none of the brain damage that I was alluding to earlier. There's an entire process for somebody to do all of that for you, to actually become a passive investor inside of a inside of a single family situation. That didn't exist, like I said, 10 years ago. And what did exist 10 years ago is you could do something very similar in multifamily, but $50,000 to $100,000 might not even get you in the game in that particular case. And in a lot of those cases, it's what's called a syndication, where you are a limited partner with other people just like you in an apartment complex or something like that. But it never really existed in single family. So now we live in an age where it exists in single family. It exists in multifamily. We have all kinds of places where you can do fractional ownership, right? We have where you can invest in real estate investment funds today. We own a lot of different funds that do this at a high level. So putting $50,000 to $100,000 to work is very, very simple today. And so my advice would be, decide what you want to be first. Do I actually want to get on the ground and get into this and really get beat up? Because do not kid yourself. If you're brand new to it, you're going to get beat up. It would be the equivalent of me going out and reading every book about how to become a great MMA fighter, and listening to every podcast and watching every UFC fight and listening to every, and then somehow believing that I'm educated enough to go off and actually fight MMA. The reality of it is that if I told you that, you'd be like, Kent, you are insane. Like, you've never actually got in the ring. And if you do get in the ring, to get in the ring and not expect to get the ever living crap beat out of you would be delusional. Well, it's the same in business. I know you know this, and it's the same in real estate. It doesn't matter how much you read and if you actually decide I want to get in the game, then you need to be prepared to get beat up. It's going to happen. That's just the nature of it. So if you want to get beat up and you want to learn some stuff and acquire skills and turn it into a business, that's one avenue. If you just want to be an investor, it is super easy to go out and, align yourself with guys like me and many others, a lot of my business partners who own very, very successful businesses that allow investors to come in and invest directly into projects, if not own the project itself outright. Again, a single family house.
Look, I think where it comes down to is people have this notion, right? I'm going to go buy real estate. I'm going to be a billionaire, right? Because all the billionaires own real estate. I'm going to buy this one piece of property. I'm going to be a billionaire. And then they do the math and they're like, wait, so if I invest 10,000, I'm making 5%. Like, what is that? I could go put that on black and double my money. I could go
Right.
put in the stock market and hopefully get a 5% dividend and make even more money. I think that's the notion of like getting started in the game, reconciling that time lag where it's not.
Well, for sure, that's the case. But I would also argue that, and to your point, real estate has been romanticized.
Hmm.
Whether it's on social media. I mean, think about how many shows are on TV. I mean, nobody is making a show on real estate about how to go and get rich slow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always, hey, we flipped this in 48 days and we made, $100,000. And so for sure, the general public is being trained to look at real estate through a very specific optic. But to your point, the billionaires and the multimillionaires that are sitting out there, real estate, they understand the actual wealth side of real estate, not the income side of real estate. And there are two different games.
But there's a difference between investing, and I could be wrong here. I'm asking you. There's a difference between investing in, let's say, a fund, for example, right? Like a capital fund that raises money for real estate, where your 50,000 gets you 50,000 worth of that real estate, versus investing in real estate, like what you were talking, where that 50,000 actually could get you $200,000 worth of real estate, right? Because you go to the bank puts down the rest. There is a difference, right?
One, and complete, candor, it depends on the fund. I can tell you that, in our funds, when people come into, one of our equity funds, my business partners' equity funds, if you are investing in a debt fund where, to your point, you're getting a return on your money, it is what it is. That's one thing. If you are investing in an equity fund, a lot of times the limited partners are participating. Well, number one, they're for sure participating in the upside, but number two, the manager of that fund is levering up their money. So if, for instance, in our scenario, if we go off and raise $50 million, well, we're going to take that $50 million. No different if I raised 50,000 and went and bought a $200,000 property. I'm going to take 50 million and go acquire 200 million. We're going to use the bank, right? That 50 million is effectively the down payment. So in that scenario, the investors, they're effectively participating the same way. They're basically saying, my 50 grand is now allowing me to own the prorated share of this $200 million investment. And so it really depends on the fund structure. And again, that's why I say there's never been a better time. But I think that going back to people understanding that real estate, you don't get sucked into the nonsense that's online, right? I mean, and what I mean by that is that we're all educated enough to understand that we're not seeing anybody's worst day on social media. We're seeing everybody's best day. And the same is true on television. The same is true on social media, et cetera, et cetera. You're seeing these big hits, these big paydays, whatever the case may be, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes into that. And so the people that are smart about real estate are approaching real estate as a wealth building strategy. They understand that there's so many ways to profit. Not only am I say from a wealth perspective, they don't look at it as the quick hits. They look at it for all the benefits that come from real estate. Number one, I can lever up. I can control a $200,000 asset with $40,000 or $50,000. That's significant, right? The bank will actually give me the money to go invest, and they are secured in that transaction. My risk there is relatively low, but I get the appreciation on a $200,000 asset, not my $50,000 down payment. And so my money gets to grow exponentially more from a cash on cash perspective. So one, I get the leverage. Two, I get the because real estate traditionally and historically does go up over long periods of time, it is an appreciating asset. 3, somebody else is paying all of my debt, right? That debt is being serviced and I'm generating cash flow out of that. And number 4, there are massive tax benefits to owning real estate. I cannot even tell you how many very, very wealthy young people I run into right now, people that have the nouveau riche, if you will, that they've got a new e-com thing that's taking off, or they've got this, it could be any variety of thing. We live in an amazing age, right? I've got a great e-com store that's taking off. I mean, I got girls, I got these OnlyFans pages that are taking off, YouTube channels doing great, my podcast, whatever it is, my coachings, I'm making a lot of money. And then I look up and they own no assets. And so they get to pay all the money to the government, literally all of it, right? And you're going to get taxed at the highest rate for wherever you are geographically located. And so the tax code is written by wealthy individuals that own businesses and own real estate. So clearly it is designed to benefit people who own real estate and own businesses. And so to not own real estate is to effectively just write off and say, I'm most willing to pay as much as I can to the federal government. And so there's so many. And so again, if you think about how hard we work to acquire money, to just willingly give it up, the single biggest transfer of wealth we've got is in most of our lives is how much we pay in taxes. So when I go back and I make the comment that real estate is about building wealth, that's the way investors look at it. They're looking at it as, all right, well, how can I effectively not pay 30-40% in taxes and effectively hold on to more of my money? And real estate is the way to do that. It isn't always about, well, I got this 50 or 100,000 quick hit. It's that I'm holding on to more money than anybody else around me because I'm using real estate and I'm getting paid to do it. And I'm controlling more real estate than, or up to 3 times as much real estate as the actual money I put into a deal.
So what I'm fascinated by is, and I always love hearing other perspectives on this, is I like coaching. Why isn't teaching this? Because you do a great job putting out content, putting out information, teaching people how to do all this. Why is teaching and coaching so important to you?
Because I would rather learn on somebody else's collective wisdom. And, I invest a great deal of money in coaching. I invest a great deal of money in masterminds and mentoring. And I am in the business of compressing time. It's like the sign says behind me, right? The time is now. It's tattooed on my arm. It's everywhere. I mean, time is very, very important to me. And I think it should be important to anybody because I don't care who you are. Everybody here has an expiration date. And if you knew what that expiration date really was, like if you had that insight, like this is the day that I'm going out the door, I promise you would act very differently because you would understand fundamentally that I've got to move. I got to do everything I can right now. The masses walk around with their heads up their butts thinking that somehow time is promised to them. And that is just not the case. Like it could end at any moment. And I don't think enough people identify with that. And so when you get the opportunity to really understand that the clock is ticking on you, then you'll also get in a hurry to get the results. You'll get in a hurry to cut to the front of the line. Get me to the outcome I'm looking for as fast as humanly possible. I don't want to go through, if I could pay something, if I could make an investment in myself, if I can make an investment in somebody else's best practices, if I can make an investment in somebody else's collective knowledge and wisdom and effectively take a year, 2 years, 5 years off my timeline, just get the result quicker than otherwise, why would I not do that? Because most people,
and you're a smart guy. You realize that. My question is I don't doubt, like I have business coaches. I'm sure you have coaches and mentors. Why is teaching your knowledge to other people so important to you? Why is you coaching other people so important to you?
Exactly what I just said. Most people are delusional about what really matters in life. I don't think, look, most people do not identify of themselves as being a drone and a moron, as somebody that has been conned into buying into what's going on out in the masses, right? I mean, think about everything about what we see and hear everything day is about control and power and just keeping people in this kind of little fixated, fear-based place, right? And so it is important to me, very important to me, that I try to wake people up, rattle their cage, help them understand, and break them free of that, trapped mentality. Because the worst thing I think that anybody could go through is, sitting on your deathbed and having regret. And to me, I've witnessed that. I've gone through things in my life that have helped me to get to this place where I view time significantly different than most people I know. And I've had the luck of losing, a very big business and making a bunch of mistakes. I've had the however you want to say it, it's going to sound weird the way I say this, but I've had the good fortune of holding my mentor's hand as he passed away. And when this guy had millions of dollars in the bank, and listening to him and in his last gasp, cry out for the one thing he wanted more of, and that was time. And knowing that all those tens of millions of dollars couldn't get him that one thing he wanted, right? I've been in these situations throughout my life to where I understand now better than I ever have. And so I just, witnessing those things and seeing those things take place, had a profound effect on me and made me understand what really matters. And so when you get that kind of clarity and you realize how many people do not get that good fortune, they do not get the opportunity to gain that perspective, it's become a very big part of who I am and what I'm about, is that I believe that these things happen for me in my life to wake people up. Not only to wake them up, but to give them the tools, to give them the information, to give them the motivation, the inspiration to push ahead and actually go get what they deserve out of this limited amount of time they have on this planet. I just think that there's too much. We just live in this amazing age, brother. There's just too much opportunity to have average people have extraordinary lives and have extraordinary moments in their lives and have extraordinary opportunities with their kids and their family and all the freedom that comes when you just do these things. I'm just extremely passionate about it. That I just think that.
So I want to go deeper on that, because I think that's super important, right? Because one of the things you talk a lot about is unlocking the potential. What do you what do you see as the biggest holdback? I guess the biggest lock around people?
Fear. And what they have, we are all a product of the way we were raised. We're all a product of what we've learned. And I think the very first thing that people have to understand is that, most of us were never taught to be entrepreneurs, first off. And therefore, by default, you were never taught to take risk. You were literally told things, from your friends and family, be careful, walk before you run, and all these things that effectively make us powerless, where people are trying to protect us, but in the end, money is the root of all evil. All these things that have helped to shape the way we view the world. I think the very first thing you have to understand is that you are a product of that. And until you can hold yourself accountable to that and say, hey, man, if that's true, for sure, I'm a product of every. So if that's true, then is it reasonable to assume that maybe I don't know? I don't have the knowledge. I don't know what it takes to embrace fear. I don't know what it takes to, fight for something that I really believe in. I don't know what it takes to attack problems and hit them head on versus running from them and wrapping this little blanket of mediocrity around me. I don't think that most people, in my experience, understand coming out of the gate just that they are the product of all of their environment for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is. But if they immediately address that and understand that, man, it's reasonable to assume that the things I have been taught, and the things that I listen to every single day, the information that I feed myself, that it has helped to shape me and put me in a place to where I'm living in a place to where I'm fearful of something that I shouldn't necessarily be fearful of. Think about it. A lot of entrepreneurs. I know a lot of entrepreneurs. I know, some of the most successful people in the world. We talked about a couple of them, prior to getting on here. My friends are Jesse Iskler, Ed Milet, Bedros Keuilian, Grant Cardone, people that have played at a very, very high level. The one thing they don't have is a fear of failure. They have a much bigger fear of regret. So they have a fear. It's just not failure. And I think people walk around with this fear of failure. Somehow they've been led to believe that that is something to be afraid of, when what they should be fearing, going back to the time discussion, is regret.
So if that's so important and we're the product of the people or our environment or the people we're around, we know that surrounding yourself with the right people is super important. But more so importantly, in a world of social media flexing, right? How do you even know who the right people are anymore?
You have to do your due diligence, man. I mean, they have to have the scars that matter. And you have to understand their story, right? And you have to understand, and listen, if you're making a business decision off of a social media post or a YouTube video, and you're not getting down to the weeds and really doing your due diligence, then you're probably doing yourself a disservice and deserve, quite frankly, you're introducing risk into the equation and probably deserve what happens to you. I mean, a lot of times when you are getting involved with somebody from a coaching standpoint or a mastermind or whatever, it's not hard to make a few phone calls. It's not hard to talk to active members. It's not hard to talk to, it's not hard. If you're going on there and then doing your due diligence and somebody's talking about, hey, I bought I bought a book from Kent, for instance, online, and it didn't ship on time. And so therefore this is all, look, there's we live in a world where lots of people have bad little things written about them, but in large part, if everything that you're hearing about this mentor, this mastermind, this coach is, man, I got a ton of value out of it, then that's probably a pretty good indication. If you can't find anything, and the guy's 23 years old and, 2 years ago, he was posting out of his mom's basement, then you might want to check yourself before you go get involved in that kind of stuff. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. I'm not telling you those people are bad. I'm just telling you that you need to go into all those situations eyes wide open. It is, again, you are a product of the people you surround yourself with, exactly what you just said. And so if that is the case, then understand the world you're walking into, eyes wide open. If somebody is, I mean, look, I'm one of these guys that what you see is what you get online, right? I'm extremely transparent, which makes me, quite frankly, where I repel probably just as many people as I attract. But the people that come into my world clearly know what they're coming in and what they're in store for when they want to work with me and our team. And I think that's the kind of opportunity that you're looking for, where somebody is very, very transparent. You clearly understand their story. You clearly understand their struggles. You've seen their ups, you've seen their downs, and they've got the wisdom and the insight that's willing to share with you. If you're getting into any kind of coaching or anything like that, and it's strictly information based, I'd be very cautious of that, because there's a massive difference between information and insight. Information is available anywhere. Again, back to what I was just talking about earlier with the MMA example. Information's everywhere. That does not make you great. The insight that you gain from when you get in that ring and you get beat up and you're going back to that coach and he's like, here's what you need to do, or this is what you need to do, guy or girl. That insight is what you're really paying for. That's invaluable.
Yeah. Look, we have this world of wanting to get rich quick. And now, as much as I despise the snake oil salespeople or those gurus pushing it, they'd actually make no money if people understood that there is no magic pill, right? So they'd be out of business if it wasn't for the people looking for that magic pill. Right. So what I see often is that it's usually incremental improvements in your business that compound over time to get major growth, right? So it's not all in one thing. It's not that get rich, that one move, that one Facebook ad you could run. It's usually compounding things over time. Same thing with real estate investing, same thing with any investing. What are your thoughts, I guess, on the importance of like compounding incremental growth in order to achieve massive growth?
I think it's wildly undervalued. I think you hit on an amazing topic, an amazing insight. The simple fact of the matter is that again, people are a product of everything they see. How hard is it to be seduced by a show that's 22 minutes and shows people flipping a house and making $100,000. The reality is starkly different than that. I mean, it's wildly different than that. And so I think there's a lot to be said for, again, understanding of the rules of the game going in. And to your point, the rules of the game for most successful people is it's day by day, it's incremental growth. It is one step at a time. It is having a plan, working with somebody, and more times than not, using a proven methodology in whatever industry you're in, that you're walking in the footsteps of others that are showing you how this is done. So I would equate it, things do take time. I would equate it to, if you and I set a goal, we challenged each other and said we want to each lose 20 pounds in the next 90 days. It's think about if you worked out for 7 days and you looked up, what kind of results would you see? Right? If you looked up in 30 days, would you probably even notice any results? Probably not. Maybe 45 days, 60 days, you might start to get a little excited. But by 90 days, if you did it every single day and you were eating clean and all that kind of stuff, for sure in 90 days, your body would be completely different. And I think business is very similar, that you may not recognize each and every day the little improvements that you're making. But for sure, if that is the goal you set for yourself, every 90 days, every month, over the course of months, quarters, years, decades, you will transform everything about yourself and your financial future, both personally and professionally, by making little changes. You may not always notice them day in and day out, certainly at the beginning. But if you're following, again, that's the value of coaches and mentors. It's like they understand the result before you do. And they're there to encourage you and hold you accountable because they know what's going to take place in 90 days. Because if you just gauged your results after 30 days, in all likelihood, you'd quit. But you're going to look up in 90 days and it'll be one of the best decisions you've ever made because you're like, oh, wow, well, they knew what was going to happen, but I didn't. And now I understand the process. I think incremental compounding efforts over time is absolutely the way to create real wealth and create real success.
Sticking on your theme of time, right? One of the things that I see a lot when I talk to business owners is they become comfortable. They stop moving forward, right? They're happy where they are. And I've been taught, and I'm from the mindset of stagnation is death, right? If you're not moving forward, you're falling backwards. Mm-hmm. So what's your advice for those listening right now who may be comfortable, right? They think financially they're comfortable, emotionally, they're spiritually, whatever it is, but let's talk more in sense of business side of things. They're comfortable. I don't need to do more. I'm okay.
I would tell you that, I had a mentor share something very similar with me. He used to tell me that there's only one way to coast, and that's downhill. And so if you're coasting, you're for sure going in the wrong direction. You got to keep pedaling to move uphill. And I think that coasting in any way, shape, or form is a slow death. I think that you have to, for me personally, I'll just give you my own personal perspective on this. And it is that you have to really fundamentally understand what a blessing it really is. You have to gain perspective, right? And I got a lot of people that in my world that make millions and millions of dollars. And whenever we have very similar conversations, somebody on this planet right now, in fact, a lot of somebody's, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of billions of people, your worst day would be their best. They're literally praying for your worst day right now. They're praying for that opportunity that you have right now. People sitting in hospital beds, people sitting, that they just want a single day for their feet to hit the ground and for them being able to take on the world and go and do something with their life, right? Just something. And here you are, have the world by the balls. You got all this opportunity in front of you. You're smart. You are healthy. You are living the greatest country on the planet at one of the greatest times in history. The ability to create wealth and create impact and to go in and to have, to really significantly do things in your life has never been, I don't want to say easy, but it's never been a more straightforward process than it is right now. And to not exchange that day, any day, and extract that value and do whatever you can to collect as many moments and as much out of that day as you can, I think it's just irresponsible. And I think that thinking about it in those terms is why you see a lot of guys, and I know you know them like I do, a lot of guys that they don't take their foot off the gas, and because that's what's driving down inside of them, that they truly feel like it would be irresponsible to not take this gift that they've been given and make the most of it. And whether that means that they're doing that inside of their own core business, or they're reaching out and helping and mentoring other people, or they're, putting money to good use through charity and community, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things that drive people. Well, whatever that looks like, they clearly understand that it's okay to be blissfully dissatisfied. Like, I'm really, really happy with where I am. But I know that I have a responsibility to do more. And that's a really healthy place to live from my perspective.
And do you think if you have that mentality, or you have that perspective and you're still not doing it, there's a disconnect between what you're doing and what your purpose is?
I think that that's reasonable to assume. I mean, I'd hate to put that on anybody, wholeheartedly, a blanket statement, but I think that, we've all heard the stories of very, very wealthy people that are miserable. Mm-hmm. They got a quick hit. They sold a company in their 30s or whatever, made hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, life sucks. That does exist. And I think that I think a huge part of understanding and gaining that perspective, like I just said, it helps to unlock what's going on. There's just not something big enough stirred up inside of them, but they're certainly capable of it. I think that most of the people that I am friends with, and that my colleagues that are extremely wealthy, they're never going to stop, because, and it may come in a very different form, but they're still driving at some level, very, very deeply. There's something that they're passionate about in their life. And I think that's really important, to have something that matters to you, that you've, again, gaining the perspective and understanding what a gift it is. I mean, look, if you're making $1 million a year, you're in the top 1% of the United States, which makes you in the top.
You're making $400,000 a year. You're in the top 1%.
You're in the top 1%. If you're the top 1% of the US, you're in the top 1% of the world, right? There's 7 billion people on this planet. Think about that for a second. You are in such elite class at that point, and have such a gift to not sit there and gain that perspective and exploit it fully. And I'm not talking about just monetarily. I'm talking about, like, go collect moments, go live life, go do the things that matter in life, because you can, because there's so many other people that just can't. It's just that simple. They were just dealt a bad hand, period. And if you're really candid with yourself, that is the vast majority of the people on this planet, not just in the US. To be in that elite class is a gift. Make the most of it.
I love it. Let's wrap up. Some rapid fire. Are you okay with that? One book or one movie every entrepreneur should read or watch.
The book would be The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Amazing book, short read. You probably read it in a day, but I read it constantly, and it always, kind of helps jar me and understand, the path I'm on. One movie that and this is going to sound horrible, but to this day, I still just love this movie because it helped me as a young man from an entrepreneurial standpoint, just lit me up, was the movie Wall Street. Bud Fox.
It's perfect for you. Life comes down to a few moments. This is one of them. This is that's the plays on your time right there.
To this day, it still lights me up. I love the everything about that movie.
Blue Horseshoe.
Yep, Blue Horseshoe.
What drives you?
My 2 little girls, man. I've got a 16-year-old and an 8-year-old, and it's important for me that I recognize the fact, as I've gotten older, I've had some friends pass away, and I've sat back and I've reflected and I've looked at how many of my friends, associates, that passed away in another part of the country or another part of the world, that I actually get on the airplane and go fly to their funeral to pay my respects. And it's a handful. It's probably less than half. And that kind of eye-opening revelation really started to has become a big part of what drives me every day. I want my little girls to see me and demonstrate to them every single day what it looks like to fight for a dream, regardless of where I'm at in the process. I want them to see it. I want them to know they can do it. And I want them to understand that you can create impact in the world, and so much impact that, if I were to pass away here, then whenever, in the next whenever, that somebody, just knowing somebody would actually get on an airplane and fly out here to San Diego, California, and just to show their respect to my two little girls, and say, your dad mattered. That's what drives me every day.
Best sound in the world.
Amen.
What's your biggest regret in business? And everyone has a regret when it comes to business.
Biggest regret in business. Biggest regret in business, that when I was in my 20s and making millions and millions of dollars, that I was exactly, thank God they did not have social media when I was in my 20s, right? Because I would have 100% been the douchebag we see online. That I was not more strategic with putting money to work at a very early age. Because, 30 years, there's nothing like uninterrupted compounding interest working for you over the course of 30 years, right? In my 20s, I was making millions of dollars, knowing that amount of money sitting there earning me a measly 6 or 8% over a 30-year period would now be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, is probably the single biggest regret I've got.
Best podcast host you've ever come across? If you're thinking this is the wrong podcast for you, the answer, it was a trick question.
Gotta be here, man.
There we go. That's the answer I was looking for. Kent, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate your time. For the listeners who want to reach out, they want to learn more. They love what you're saying and they vibe with you. How can they reach out?
Yeah, just find me on easiest place to find me is on social. Just go to Instagram. It's at Kent Clothier. Go on Facebook, Kent Clothier, or just go to my website, kentclothier.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. Take care.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.